Welcome to Storycomic Presents, where we interview amazing storytellers and artists. This is episode 281. I'm your host, Barney Smith of Storycomic.com, and we're honored to have with us the internationally revered and highly talented screenwriter-turned-comic book creator of Tap or Die and Decay, Anthony Stokes. So Anthony, you've had over 6 successful Kickstarters so far through the app, and some of them have, and this is the first one that you're doing with Tap or Die,
Yes.
which is, and it says issue number 1. So you're kind of letting us think that this is going to be an ongoing series.
No, it's absolutely going to be an ongoing series. Yes.
Nice. Okay. Do you want to talk a little bit about what Tap or Die is about?
Absolutely. So it's about a guy. He's an up and coming. He's wanted to be a wrestler his entire life. He's getting gate kept by some of the legacy wrestlers, which happens in real life. And the commissioner kind of screws him over to protect his older fighters, and then so he decides to get revenge.
Where did the inspiration of this comic book come from?
Absolutely. So I was talking to my good friend Christopher Curtis, who's another comic book creator. And I was like, hey man, let's do a book together. What do you got? And he had the idea of, he had like some of the characters and he had like the premise. And then I kind of fleshed it out with my experiences that I had in the comic book industry, dealing with some of the similar stuff, the legacy, people in the industry, dealing with gatekeepers and stuff like that. So it's incredibly personal. It's my most personal book so far. I was in a really angry place when I wrote it, and it's been real cathartic. And I'm glad that it's doing well. That I made a book that was about me, like being frustrated, and people are responding to it so far. So that's good news.
Right. And so how does it? So because you said this was an extremely personal story. Was it important for you to actually write some previous stories like for instance, like Decay and Intrusive Thoughts before doing this? Have you seen that your writing has actually evolved to making it ready for you to tell this personal story?
No, not really. I think my style of writing, like I thought about this metaphor, like a grilled cheese, like grilled cheese, it's simple but effective. So I don't think it was a lot. I wouldn't say that I took huge leaps between Decay to here as far as writing wise. I think they're both really solid. I think it definitely helped. I think the difference was in terms of, and this is debatable if this is even what you're talking about, but in terms of writing a script that was easier for an artist to interpret and kind of amplify and bring to life, maybe a little bit better. I'm getting better at understanding like how to write iconic moments and stuff like that. And it's only gonna get better as well. Like I think this comic, I think it looks good, but I think going forward it's gonna be crazy. It's gonna just keep getting better and better.
Right. And so as you said that you wrote this script out, did you have any editing aspects to it before you sent it off to the artist, or how did that process work for you?
I have a couple. There's a guy, Armin Nassim, who did some light editing on the book. Really, I have a couple people who are trusted beta readers. They rate it, give me notes, and then we ship it off. This book actually, this is one of the faster books that I've worked on, man. I think, wow, we must have started this in February.
Wow, really?
Yeah, we must have started this on February. I think having it in black and white helps. I have an artist who does great work and works really fast. And like I said, I was very angry when I wrote it, so I was extra motivated. But also, I think I needed something like this in my catalog, something a little bit broad that also delivers on the same story and character and themes that the previous books had as well.
Right. And so what can people expect from it? And as we said earlier, this is amazing. You've already reached your goal already.
Absolutely.
And you still have over half a month left on this. what are some of the things that you learned from your previous Kickstarters that you were able to implement here to really kind of ensure this Kickstarter success?
I think a lot of this is 68 backers came from previous campaigns, so
Okay.
I am, that's half, so it is a lot of returning people. So there's that. I think understanding how to organize a page, you really want to emphasize when it comes to a Kickstarter campaign, you want to emphasize the premise, you want to emphasize the pages, and you want to emphasize the rewards. So I think this is a really stripped down campaign. And it just, I think it's just, I don't want to say bare bones, but it's really focused on those things, as well.
Right. And so what were some of the things that you were able to focus on specifically for this one as compared to some of your other Kickstarters?
It's the process is more or less the same. It's just easier.
Okay.
Like it just made more money. Basically, like I'm doing more or less the same thing. I would say, here's what I will say though. I wish I'd released this, man, earlier in the year because Twitter was such a huge, it was so huge in getting a lot of pledges earlier in my career. Like for Decay, I think Decay 2, I was looking at the metrics, over 100 pledges or something like almost 100 pledges from Twitter. And then Intrusive Thoughts as well, it had almost 70 pledges from Twitter. So it has been a bit of a challenge. You got to make up those pledges elsewhere, essentially, because I'm not doing terrible at Twitter. I'm curious how other creators will do, but I'm at 21 with 18 days left. So I think it'll be below. I think it'll definitely be below those other campaigns because 100, 80 backers from Twitter would be crazy from this point on. Like that'd be insane. But having to compensate for that has been a challenge. But I think obviously we did pretty amicable job, I think.
Right. And so the first part of your tier is that you have for $5 you get the digital copy. For $5 you get a digital copy of Tap or Die, which is a great deal. But for $10 you get the digital deluxe PDF. Do you want to explain to our listeners and our viewers what the difference is between the two?
Absolutely. And when you ask me what's new about this campaign, this is what's new. Okay. I have the digital deluxe. So digital deluxe is going to add some bonus material. There's going to be an interview, an exclusive interview that's going to be specific to the PDF.
Okay.
You get all the covers as well. It's just going to be like good bonus material. It's like a supersized version of the normal PDF. If you want to spend a little bit of money, but you don't want to get the physical copy, is right there for you.
Okay, excellent. And then you also have, so the physical issue is $15 that you have on there. And it also, so here's the thing. This is actually also comes with the digital deluxe PDF, correct?
Yes. Yeah. So what you want to do is you kind of want your audience to gravitate towards certain things. So what's great about this, right, is that you have the $5 PDF. Some people are only going to back for $5, which is fine. Then some people, I think more people have backed the, I think it's one less person has backed the 23, where it's like, okay, you get a little bit more. And then I feel like with you getting, basically the difference is $5. And you get a physical copy.
Exactly. I know. I saw that. Yeah.
So hopefully that incentivizes people to spend the extra $5 to get it. It's the main cover is selling pretty good. We got 32 pledges, which is really good.
Right. Yeah. And then you have, and how important have you seen in your previous Kickstarters? How important are variant covers to a Kickstarter?
Huge. When you think about a variant cover, here's what a good, I'm gonna get a little spicy. A variant cover that is by the same artist as the original cover makes like 0 sense to me. Because a variant cover, I look at it like every cover is a pitch, right?
Right.
So this one is it has a little bit of sex appeal, has a little bit of attitude, introduces a character, kind of like that realistic sort of. So that's something that might grab people. And you can scroll down. So this one, it has more of the action. It sells more of the action. It's like completely different color scheme than the other comics.
Right.
So if you thought about like the first one is banking on like a little bit of sex appeal, a little bit of charisma. This one's banking on the action and the colors and the crazy perspective.
Right.
And then, you know, I don't have to explain to you the appeal of the last two. So
Right.
you'll notice all these are in different styles and they're all kind of chasing after different things. There's a little bit of overlap, but that's what I try because I want something. I want to cover for somebody, you know.
Right.
So that's the motivation there.
Right. Yeah, and the NSFW, you're having, you know, the version of that as well, which is a good variant cover too. So
I think it's a good one. I think it's a good one. You want to be, I think with it being, I would never do an NSFW cover for like Decay or something. Like I think with it being wrestling, with it being like a fun, sexy, brutal comic, I think it made sense.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And so is this the first time you've done an NSFW cover?
Yeah. I wish I'd done it sooner.
Yeah. Yeah. And so what's the Fire Ant Entertainment bundle?
So that's a digital bundle. So that's all my comics. So that's Decay 1 through 5.
Okay.
That's Intrusive Thoughts. That's Fire. That's the and you get the digital deluxe PDF. So once again, and for this difference of $14, you're getting 6 comic books essentially.
Wow.
Yeah. So again, we're trying to push people. My hope is that I'm trying to convert these new pledges into like lifer Stokes fans. So my hope is that once you've read a Decay, once you've read Intrusive Thoughts, once you read a Tap or Die, you're like, okay, I like this guy, and maybe you'll back some of those other campaigns. You know, that's the hope, that everything feeds into each other.
And so if you look at it from that perspective, is that you actually have 2 new backers on your entire bundle, the physical one, and you also have for your other bundles, you're looking at for your digital ones as well. You're looking at least almost 10 brand new readers for Decay.
Right. So if you'll scroll down, we actually had the early bird specials. So it's actually more than that. So you can kind of see,
right.
You had the two for the physical, you had 5 for the digital bundle. You have
wow, and then the early bird. Oh no, that's just the variant covers. Yeah.
You had 2 people that bought the every Tap or Die cover plus the Fire Entertainment bundle. So I mean, I guess you could say like 12 people that are going to, you know, consume. Presumably they bought it, so you know, hopefully they consume it. But you know, yeah, it's a nice little bonus,
right?
And it also makes it easy to fulfill. You know, I fulfill really fast. Like Intrusive Thoughts, I was really on it. I think I fulfilled that within like 3 weeks,
right?
Which is
now
insane.
So, but for those that you're fans and readers of Decay, does this mean that you're done with Decay now that you're working on Tap or Die, or what your other readers can expect?
No, absolutely no. So, Decay is actually getting like a spin-off sequel.
Okay.
And then it's also getting a prequel. Well, not a prequel, but like another. It's getting 2 more spin-offs, and along with whenever I drop a volume or something, I want to have new content. So I'm going to do shorts in this in the Decay universe and all that stuff. Yeah. And then maybe another spinoff. So like I want for the foreseeable future, I want to do Tap or Die, Intrusive Thoughts, and then pepper in the Decay project, essentially, like for the foreseeable future. And then once Intrusive Thoughts is done, because that's going to be a 6-issue series, I think this is going to go on indefinitely because, you know, it's doing well. There's a lot of story to tell, you know. I'll figure out what the next kind of tempo is.
Right.
But yeah, no, the future. I'm 2025, you know, I don't know what the slate's going to look like. It's very exciting.
Right. Now, because we mentioned before we went live that this is not a shared universe. Intrusive Thoughts and Decay and Tap or Die, they don't coexist with each other in the same universe. But do you put in little Easter eggs for those that read Decay? Will there be some little Easter eggs like in the background or something that might make people say, oh yeah, that's from that other part, or anything like that?
It will. There has to match thematically, you know.
Right.
And that's just not my concern, you know, respectfully to people do that. This is not my concern. is fitting in Easter eggs. It's not a bad idea. Like there will be some crossover. Like at some point there will be crossover, but it has to fit thematically. Like I'm doing something that's going to cross over with intrusive thoughts, but it has to make
right.
It
You
has
don't
to
want to
make
shoehorn
sense.
it in. You want to make sure it makes sense, right?
Exactly. So, and yeah, no. So I think that could be cool for sure. We'll see.
Because so you said like intrusive thoughts kind of has a finite 6 issues kind of story arc on this,
Yes.
and then Tap or Die is going to be ongoing. So for your readers, as you say, you had a lot of readers that transferred over from Decay in intrusive thoughts. For those that are new and they might not know a lot about the world of wrestling, what are some of the story, some of the story beats that some of them might not be familiar with wrestling might appreciate in Tap or Die?
It's so character focused that
Mm,
wrestling is just so happens to be the subgenre essentially, but it's really a revenge story.
okay.
So I think it's a low barrier of entry if you're a wrestling fan, because there's not a lot of wrestling in this, to be honest. I probably shouldn't say that. There's 2 scenes that are explicitly in wrestling rings in
Right.
this first issue, and the rest of it is, like I said, it's about gatekeeping. It's about how to navigate having people that have more experience than you, but you might be more talented than them in navigating that stuff, workplace politics. So I think that's the thing that people are going to relate to. And I do think this will appeal to wrestling fans, because I don't know how much of an intersection there is between fans that like wrestling and then people that like intrusive thoughts. They're actually kind of very they're pretty dissimilar.
Mm.
Aesthetically, I think thematically, I think they're actually very similar, but I'm gonna pull up the numbers right now to see how many people pledged. But I say, I think that this isn't exclusively for wrestling fans. I think wrestling fans will get a little extra bang for their buck, but more or less, I think that this is for people that just like good story. 55 returning backers from Intrusive Thoughts, which is crazy.
So basically, what you're talking about, Anthony, is that people are coming back here because they like your writing and they know that you're good at developing. You tell really good character-driven stories. What are some of your what would you say for people that are brand new to reading any Anthony Stokes stories? What would you say is your style of storytelling?
Oh man, that's a good one. I'm not okay. I'm gonna adjacently answer your question, because I don't. They don't caught me off guard. So let me tell you what I emphasize when I story. I love dialogue. Like something that I really love is dialogue. I feel like that's just the meat of
Mm.
what you just get across characterization so well with dialogue, that back and forth, like those 2 people just like batting heads and stuff. And that, because I'm a Tarantino fan, I'm a huge Aaron Sorkin fan. That's my favorite thing in the world, is when 2 characters get into an argument and it's like a war of words. And then also you have like the character stuff, like I'm really trying to get into the head of the character, put them in interesting situations that explore character as well.
Mm.
And then pacing. I love good pacing. I feel like my books are really well paced. Like I feel like a lot happens, action wise. I feel like I try to hit a lot of beats as well.
Mm.
So I think they're cerebral books, but they're not at a slow pace.
So initially, you started off as a screenwriter. How has writing comic scripts different than screenwriting?
It's funny, is I used to write comic scripts in screenplay format, and I've recently transitioned to doing them like in kind of more traditional. There's not a Bible for how to write comic books, but I've gotten more into what would resemble a comic book script lately. But really, I think when I was writing screenplays, what really helped me was like I said, dialogue. And then I think also, I'm gonna give myself credit, is I also knew to pull back. Like I cut out so any line of dialogue that I can cut out, I will. Like if this cuts out and it changes nothing, I'll just cut it out.
Mm.
And some people don't like that, but to me, it's like, one, Hopefully, it might result in one less page that needs to be lettered. So that's a little bit of money. You're showing more art, and it causes you to, like me. I try to be very minimalistic, and what that does is it forces you to be a better visual storyteller, because that's what the medium is essentially as well. Like there's a scene with the locker that I think some people might miss. There's a couple scenes in here that I think people might miss, and then they come full circle, which is really cool. That's a really thing that, like, for you to just that made me happy, and somebody to be like, oh, this is going to be like a silly wrestling comic book, that's like sexy, and then they get something that's really cerebral, that's really like character driven and heartfelt, and gut wrenching in some parts.
What are some of the scenes in here that when you wrote it out, that because you're saying this is going to be a really good passion project for you, what are some of the things that you're really excited to actually put down on paper and you're excited for the reader to see?
I think all the action scenes look incredible, and they're not action for action's sake. They're really telling a story. They're really exploring character. And then there's also some stuff dealing with the parent that is I think is really profound. And also there's this great moment where he's mimicking his favorite wrestler as a kid, and he's doing the shoulder drop, and he's doing it directly. Yeah, you can pull up on the Kickstarter. He's doing it directly with the other guy in the background. And I think it's just that moment right there I think is a perfect melding between like idea, script, and then art as well. And I think that says so. There we go. Like, I think that says so much. And it's a nostalgic angle. It's a nostalgic angle that, like, a lot of people are going to look at that and be like, wow, that was me. I've heard that comment a lot as well. Like, that was me as a kid,
When you mentioned earlier, like this has been a really important project for you to work on. Explain a little bit about that.
My idea of what a combo creator would be that's doing Kickstarter would almost be like a rock star. Like, I thought they'd be like, brash and like cool and independent and like and headstrong. And that's not the case, like, really, it's not the case. And that's fine. I'm not even criticizing people for that. But it's a lot of self-defeatist that I saw, that, there's this tweet that was like, did you guys, not write any pages today? Well, me neither. And it's like, what are you talking about? Like, what's going on? Like, I'm writing pages if I need to write pages, I'm writing pages every day. And that's not to say that everybody needs to act a certain way. It's just more or less to say, like, this is my expectation, and then here's what happened. So I came in and started acting like, I internalized and started acting like the creator that I'd want to see, being a bit brash, being a bit abrasive within reason, like, and people push back against it. The system don't like to be bucked like that. Like, that's as simple as I can put it. I got so many comments that were like, why are you just started? Why are you talking like this? There's a certain way to do. There's so many things that, like, people were like, this is the way it's always been done. It's like, man, I mean, a lot of us, you looked at my campaigns and said, wow, these all funded. Like, that 6 campaigns funded I mean, it's not easy. That's right. That's not the norm. That's pretty irregular. So I'm not just sitting up here just saying stuff. And it was so many conversations. It was so much of, like, I thought people were making, like, a lot of bad. I can disagree with anybody, if we're having good faith conversation, but I feel like it was a lot of bad faith arguments, a lot of people painting me in a really negative light. And then at the peak of that is when I started working on Tap or Die. And some of that is probably, I'm gonna be honest, some of it is probably like self-grandizing, like for sure, like, I'll acknowledge that, but it's just how I felt. Like, right. That's how I felt at the time,
So in a way, it's like that. The symbolism of, like, the gatekeepers in wrestling are the more are the people that are the indie comic creators that have already been around, that have kind of telling you this is how you're supposed to do it.
Yeah, I'm gonna be 100% honest. It's probably like the meanest thing I'll probably say. Like, a lot of these guys are just early adopters. Like, a lot of these guys just got in and found their audience early, right? Like, if I did drop this comic book in like 2019, like pre-COVID, this would have like $20,000 already because there was like no competition.
Right.
But I started after COVID or like during the end of COVID, so there's less fishing to see essentially.
Right.
So it's like some of y'all, it's not even like you're doing it better. You just did it earlier, you know?
Right.
So yeah, I would say that. And hey, we don't always have to agree, like I said, on everything. But if your major criticism of me is that I'm new, that's not a critique. You know, I'm kind of doing what y'all are doing, but like 10 years younger, you know, like 3. So, you know, I'm done. I'm done with that. I'm relaxed. But no, that's how I feel. And that's the attitude that I had, you know, making it. And I think a lot of people can relate to that. I mean, I had a conversation with somebody in indie comics, and this is something I've never had to deal with. I had to agree with them a certain way. Like you couldn't disagree with them in a way that didn't not massage their ego, you know? And I used to do labor, man. I yelled expletives at my supervisor one time. Like it was a regularity, you know. I'm used to like, you know, cursing like a sailor on the job. So this is a new thing for me. And you're not even my boss. You know, you're not even my boss, and I have to like massage your ego when I disagree with you. But that's not specific to any comics. That's all over the place. You know, like that's going on all, you know. So I think people will. I maybe should have put gatekeeping in the advertisement more, I'm thinking.
As you mentioned, this being an ongoing series, do you foresee a story arc on what happens to Domino? How does a story arc, do you have an ending to it?
Yes, it has a definitive ending, and that's the cool part. It's just what's in between, you know, what's in between. How can you keep telling a very compelling story? But what also is going to be interesting is how do my experiences in indie comics color the story as well, you know.
And do you see yourself also with how much flexibility do you have to see if there's any readership response to certain characters? Would you kind of pivot and change any storylines at all?
It depends. You know what I think there's a couple of different things. I think this book hits on a lot of different. I just wanted to make something that appeals to like not everybody, but definitely appeals to most people. So you have the action, right? You have the wrestling aesthetic. You have the sex appeal, you know. You have like the brutality, you have the character stuff. So it's like, what are people going to get drawn to? I don't know. And then whatever parts that they feel like I may emphasize more. Like I know people said they want more action, you know. So it's also going to be about finding that balance, because not every the problem. Here's the problem, and it's something I don't know if I've solved yet. Not every you want to have a build up to the wrestling, right? Like what is the Rocky movies like 2 hours of just build up, but because of the structure of a comic book, how do you build up a villain and then pay that off? So I got to get really clever. Like maybe a fight starts and then we do a flashback to kind of give the characterization of the villain or something like that. Maybe it's a double issue, you know, maybe who knows, you know, there's gonna be all kinds of, maybe the action is with another character, you know. So it's gonna be a challenge. This is the first series I've really written where I didn't know how many issues it was gonna be. Like when I wrote Decay, I had Decay 1 through 5 written before a panel of issue 1 was drawn. Same as Intrusive Thoughts. So this is brand new territory. So it's kind of exciting, but I think it also mirrors what's going to happen if I take work for hire jobs, right? Or if I hop in a writer's room. So I'm kind of excited as well.
It's an homage. Do you see this more as an homage to wrestling or an homage to indie comic creators then?
I think it's more of a homage to wrestling. I do.
Okay.
I do believe it's a homage to wrestling. I think it's homage to being in love with wrestling and being in love with something, you know, as well. Right. So, but I do I think that the indie comics thing is just, you're in a field. There are people that have been here longer than you that kind of suck. How do we deal with, how do we navigate that?
Right. Yeah. And so how I guess for my next question on here is, do you see other than this interview, how subtle of that symbolism have you made it?
As far as being indie comics,
Yeah.
it's very subtle. Like I wanted to capture the spirit. I didn't want to be so callous as to like include people that I didn't like or something like that. I think that's really, I don't think that's good. I don't think that's smart. I think it's in pretty bad taste. And also, your perspective on people can change. Like I had an argument with the guy. I went on his show and we got into an argument. I did a little reaction to his comment. So we had really bad blood for a little bit and we cleared things up and we're cool. And if you put somebody in a comic book, I don't think that's going to happen. So it's more about the attitude or the feeling more than resembling the actual people, which is kind of mean spirited and kind of, I think, in bad taste.
When does issue 2 of Tap and Die come out? When does issue 3? What's your schedule looking like?
I have a rough schedule, right? Like, and here's what I've done. So, like, this is for my boy Chris Moses. There are expander campaigns and there's consolidator campaigns. So, a consolidated campaign is like Decay issue 4 and 5. I'm not really looking to get new people. I'm more or less trying to reinforce the audience that I have and give them more stuff. Tap or Die is an expander campaign. And up until today, it was 50-50. And the numbers, the numbers have been creeping up and it's been returning to new backers has been pretty even. So that means we did a good job, right? And then it's a high number. So we're not alienating my old audience either. Like 33% of the people that backed Decay 4 and 5 have backed this. So, but the thing is that running an expander campaign is very exhausting. I'm exhausted right now. You can kind of, for lack of a better word, I look at the consolidator campaigns as more or less like a time to kind of recoup or kind of relax or not go quite as hard. So I kind of want to do expander, consolidator, boom, boom, boom. So that's a little secret sauce. And then Tap or Die 2, I think is going to come out in January. I think we said.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, January.
So about every 6 months, then you're gonna have one that come out.
It might be faster, honestly. Like I have Decay, I have the Decay trade, the Decay Volume 1, and then I have the Decay sequel. So if those weren't around, Tap or Die issue 2 would have come out end of the year. So it's not even. It might be faster than that, and that's why I want to get to a point. Why I love working on Decay. I want to get to a point where it's just Intrusive Thoughts, Tap or Die, and then Tap or Die and whatever comes next, or maybe I just do work for hire stuff and just work on Tap or Die exclusively. Is also possible. You never know. Like I just know that things can change. So I don't want to get anything locked in. I'm always looking to optimize stuff. I'm always looking to find the best way to do stuff.
Right. So in order to make this kind of an evergreen interview, say for instance, somebody listens to this 3 months after this recording, where can somebody purchase Tap or Die?
It's going to be exclusively on Kickstarter. I'm going to be honest with you.
Okay.
Because I say that because I'm running a campaign almost every other month. So generally speaking, like for me, it's better to invest in that than to invest in a website,
right?
Which costs money. And at this point, I have so many titles that it is going to cost money. So I would say it's not the best business model, but I got to do what I can, So definitely Kickstarter. Like it's the move.
So probably follow you on Kickstarter and then wait for any notifications to get ready to that.
For sure.
And then they would also be able to purchase when you have an upcoming Kickstarter for Tap or Die issue number 2 or issue number 3. You're going to have those catch-up tiers, correct?
Exactly. Yeah, that's always going to be a big part of my business model. I want to build up that catalog. I want 20 issues of comic books by the end of 2025.
Wow. Okay.
And be it work for hire stuff, 20 titles essentially, because My boy Pat Shan, one of my best friends, he has a digital catch up tier that cost $100. So if he sells 10 of those, he made $1,000. Nothing. It's that's what I want. That's what I want to aspire to. So right now we're just powering through and just trying to knock out these books,
Right. So for those that want to learn more about you, Andrew, where's the best place they could go to?
Twitter. Yep. You might not like what you learn, but Twitter @Stokes the writer.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
right there. Yeah. So @Stokes the writer, and you do have, for anyone's interested, you do have a decaycomicbook.bigcartel.com if people want to read Decay. Correct?
Yes, I have a couple of the Decay books on there. Yes.
Okay. All right. Perfect. Well, listen, it looks like then, Anthony, that you're gonna have to come back on then and around January when you want to talk about Tap or Die issue number 2.
Okay, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. We get absolutely.
Yeah. Perfect. All right. Well, thank you so much, Anthony. This has been great. So this is great. So you've been having extremely successful. Oh, hang on. My wife is calling me on Messenger. I hope it's hang on, let me edit this out for a second. Right, let's see what she wants. Hello? I'm in the middle. I'm live right now. I'm live. I'm live streaming. Check your I gave it to your daughter. Yeah, no, I hid the remote from the 2-year-old, but I gave it to your daughter. All right. All right. There's millions of people watching this conversation, just so you know. All right. I love you, babe. All right. So we have a 2-year-old. The 2-year-old, almost 3-year-old, grabs the remote and just, I think he accidentally orders stuff on like Amazon as well by accident with the remote now, because everything's connected through Fire TV.
Right.
So I hid the remote, and so I gave it to my daughter. My daughter has the remote, but my wife just like called me to make sure. So
okay.
Anyway, okay. All right. So there we go. All right. So I'm gonna have to edit this part out too. I'm gonna timestamp all this, Anthony, and then by the time this actually goes, when it's all edited out, it'll be so smooth, and people are like, "Wow, look at that! Barney's just asking like, great questions right after the other with Anthony. That's amazing." Yeah. So, all right. So.